when you're thinking about your legacy and what those assets look like, most people won't come and talk to you about it. And it's the insurance piece. It's exciting when you realize what you're protecting.
Hello and welcome. On this season of the podcast, I get to sit down with artists and sponsors involved in the 2024 studio tour put on by Great Falls Studios in Virginia. And this is the annual art festival where visitors have access to creators with an emphasis on learning about and sometimes getting involved in the artist's creative process. The tour takes place this year on Saturday, October 19th and Sunday, October 20th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can find out more on www.greatfallsstudios.com. So that's www.greatfallsstudios.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. Welcome, Stacy Tucker. I'm just going to do a little bit of a brief introduction here, how I know her, how I know you, Stacy. You were recommended to me actually through another very strong, beautiful woman with a big heart, Jacqueline Nunez. And full disclosure, Stacy looks after insurance for me personally, business-wise. And so it's a great feeling to be organized like this with all the insurances and working with Stacy and Annie over there. They make every step very reassuring and easy to move forward to. And Stacy is one of the sponsors of the Great Falls Studios annual studio tour this year. That's our annual art festival, and where people can visit people in their artists in their studios at home or wherever they may have them. And we have the pleasure, therefore, of speaking with Stacy today. So welcome, Stacy. Really, really grateful that you could join us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I wanted to launch a bit into your background, how you've achieved your insurance business. You know, it's funny because like insurance sounds dry and tedious until you realize how personally it impacts you. And then it becomes very interesting. That's what I found. So please go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me. I educate people, especially businesses and families, on how to build assets and leave a legacy. And so that's essentially what insurance is. Like you said, it sounds a bit dry, but I've always had a passion for helping people with finances. I started in banking when I was a teenager. So I've always had a unique relationship with the physical money, but as well as that helping to grow it and figure out how to make it achieve the goals that each family needs.
Right. Interesting. So I'm going to just go a little bit into what insurances you do cover.
Oh, of course. So, of course, we do property and casualty, which just means auto and then fire. But fire is all encompassing. It's business insurance, homeowners, rental properties, renters, it's boats, it's a lot of things. It's also protecting your assets, your personal possessions. And sometimes that's outside of the norm, which are things like high value, unique assets like your rings, jewelry, furs, arts. If you have coins and collections and things like that, we have plans that can help you protect those on a specific basis based on their unique values.
Right. So that can apply to the art world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the biggest question you get when it comes to insurance from, is there one?
The broad one is this covered?
Uh-huh.
Then underneath of that, it could be a multitude of questions. And uniquely, many people don't know what's covered because, let's be honest, do you read the whole policy?
Right.
Right. Most people kind of go by what their neighbor said or what they've known from experience. And so understanding what is covered is actually a smaller amount of things that are covered that are not covered. So it's important to kind of know what those things are and how it applies to you specifically, because your deductible may be different, where you live may be different, your unique plans may be different. So it's important to kind of know what those things are.
Right, right. What's like a piece of information that you find is really helpful for people to know when they're looking for insurance? There's so many, you even have like pet insurance, I think. So there's a lot of different questions I'm sure you come up with.
One of the most important things to understand is that insurance really is available to you for pennies on the dollar for what you're protecting. And so often people look at it as just another bill. They don't see it as protecting their assets and what it costs to not have it. So often they will undercover, meaning their coverage won't be enough for what they're trying to protect based on a few dollars difference in price.
Interesting. I understand that you get involved with community a lot. Like for example, when I opened my gallery, I'm a woman-owned business here. You opted to support. You have sponsorships that you offer, and thank you again. And you're looking as a woman-owned business to help other women-owned business. Tell us more about how you get involved with the community.
As a business owner, one of the challenges of the many I faced was developing capital that you need to grow your business, which also means giving you exposure, branding. There are many marketing things you can do that are very inexpensive, but there are some that actually need a little bit more legwork and a little more teeth, a few more tentacles, and those things typically have a cost. So I want to help small business owners, particularly women, stay in business. We all know a woman business owner who left her good corporate job with this big dream, right? And then it turns out that, she's $1,000 short for rent one month. And so she closes her business and goes back to work. If I can help a few of those people not have that outcome, that would make me so happy.
Oh, that's right. It does. It does come down to, sometimes it just seems like, well, I'm a few hundred out or something like that, 1,000 out, and getting a little bit of help does mean like, oh, it also signifies like if somebody else kind of recognizes it, then maybe other people will too, and maybe this is just the next push, and it just gets you over that, and gives you that spark, So, and I understand you also teach, you also give lessons about business, can any kind of hinted towards it. So
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I am thankful to have opportunities to present to small groups right now. A lot of times it could be home buyer seminars. A lot of realtors approach me to talk to their clients about homeowners insurance, landlord insurance, things like that. A huge upward trend in our marketplace, however, and a good one this time, is people wanting to understand their money a little bit better. How do I leave a legacy? What does that mean? How do I structure my business? How do I protect it from being taken away because I made a mistake, something for which I'm at fault? I'm a baker, but somebody got food poisoning or had an allergic reaction, and so now they want to take me to small claims court. Little things like that, So if I can help educate people about how all of that fits into keeping their insurance premiums low, including things like credit, your claims history, I'm happy to share that.
Yeah, I remember I took a baking degree on the side on a weekend with the idea that I would become like this. This is many, many years ago. And I thought, oh, well, when I was single and had, all the time in the world kind of thing. And I just thought I would love to, do the baking. And, there's some special recipes, the family recipes that I thought, and I was living in New York at the time. So it's a very competitive, environment there. And so I took the course and I was explaining, to the instructors kind of what I was hoping to do and, set up like a home bakery. And it was just the stories that came out about, people sabotaging you and that you really need those insurances, especially in New York, where everybody's kind of doing the same thing and going after it. But I just remember, you got to even like for everything you need insurance. So, and it exists, which is pretty neat, that there's all kinds of layers of protection. So I think that it is valuable to talk to somebody and ask the questions. This is what I'm looking at setting up. What are all the levels of protection that I can access? And I see that you chat
and
with people.
You may have heard me. Sorry about that. You may have heard me say in another options that I've spoken to people about is the moment you earn your first dollar, you've created a new risk that's separate from you, Silvana, or separate from you, Mary the baker. So you need to protect that risk. And every business is different. Even from one baker to another, it's very different.
Yeah.
Some bake at home, some bake in a retail shop, some bake in a pop-up kitchen, some are caterers. So what your risk is different, and it needs to be addressed that way.
When I first owned dogs, we did not have pet insurance, and so I feel like it's really something that's come on maybe within the last 10 years. I'm not sure what the time frame is, or maybe it was there before and we just never did it. Is there what are the different, are there big differences in terms of like cats versus dogs? I mean, birds, or like, what's the limit there, would you say?
And I agree with you, probably even more since 2020,
Okay.
when the ownership of pets grew significantly, because people could have them. If you worked 8 and 9, 10 hours a day, you were less likely to have a pet, perhaps. So for many people, they bought pets. And the difference with pet insurance is not as complicated as human insurance, thankfully. It's primarily the age of the pet that will determine what it costs to do it. So the younger the pet, if they're brand new, it's going to be much less expensive than if they're a 7 or 8 or 9-year-old pet, because that's normally when the medical and health issues start. And I think the cost for caring for a pet professionally has increased. So that's why the popularity of pet insurance has risen.
Yeah. What are some other trends like in insurance that you've seen?
The good ones?
Well, just general, like, I mean, have there been new kinds of insurances, or has been a surge in popularity of certain types of insurances, or has it been is it steady?
Sort of like I said, because of people's increased interest these days in understanding financial well-being, financial literacy, financial intelligence, it's trending. And so individuals, especially young adults, especially with TikTok, Instagram, it's being presented in more interesting ways, not the dry way, as you said before. And so young adults are now equally interested in real estate pricing, median home prices. Is there whole life insurance that I can use to buy assets and invest in? So VULs, before nobody asked for a VUL. It's a variable universal life. Now they are. So because TikTok and YouTube and Instagram have made those things a little more interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was, also going back to Jacqueline, she had posted, she's a realtor for everybody else who doesn't know her, but she posts a lot of useful little things on her Facebook page and just about taking care of your assets and being organized, when, if a crisis happens or that you're ready, in the event when you pass, hopefully, when you're 120 years old or whenever, but that you're ready for that and you've got that investment. You're not kind of leaving your family high and dry, and you thinking about investing for the future. All these little things of making sure that bank accounts have a backup or something like that, and just having all your backup plans in place. It's a lot of work, but then you've got it already. And I don't know. It feels like it's not really. I don't know if COVID kind of scared us into this or something, or if it's just that it is TikTok and just people are talking about it more. If it's a combination of everything, that people just say, well, wait a second, we've got to live a little bit more cautiously in terms of, just tying up all of our loose ends and making sure that things aren't just kind of hanging out there and inaccessible. Because even just an uncle of mine passed away, and I still get I see his Facebook as like a suggested, and I'm like, well, you didn't even, how do you even get in there to close his Facebook account down, and you can't. It's so hard. So do it while you're alive.
You're so smart, Savannah. You hit the nail on the head. It is hard to have it in order, but what's harder? Not having it on order.
Yeah.
For the ones that you say you love and leave behind to take care of these things. So that, to your point, is also trending. People are recognizing, instead of, grandpa having a little secret box in the cellar, have it out. Talk about these things over Thanksgiving dinners. Talk about these things at the family cookout. Not that it's not fun to talk about other things, but it's not fun to not talk about them when the unexpected occurs. And I don't mean necessarily, a death, but it could be anything, like a car accident. Someone could be ill or incapacitated or in a state where they can't communicate, right? Do you have your medical power of attorney? Do you have someone who knows where your insurance plans are? Do they know who to call? Hey, they haven't driven the car for 6 months because they've been in a coma. I mean, there was a colleague of mine, an agent, who was in a coma for a few months during COVID.
Wow.
But she was prepared, so her office could still run. Her family knew what to do. And her talk about it is what inspired me to actually sort of level up my voice about it, to amplify my voice about these things, because I don't want it to happen to anyone else.
I think sometimes, with family members, they might think, oh, you're just maybe counting on things. They're like, no. We just don't want it to suddenly be a mess, and it can create family friction. There's so many movies based on what, surprise things or wills not in order or who had the will and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty classic. And I was going to make another point and I'm trying to think of it right now, but I can't remember now. But yeah, I just feel like maybe the world has got so many you got to protect your identity in everything, And it's not just, I'm just not just saying like identity theft, but it's like creating these social media, like where are my imprints in the world? And how is that going to be managed, in my absence or something like that? And it's kind of weird when you think about like how many email addresses exist out there or this or that, how much we actually,
I have myself.
Yeah. And just like we do have a lot more assets now with the digital world, so it's just kind of coming to terms with that. And
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think when people think assets, they think monetary,
right,
most of the time, whether it's, stocks or bonds or cash or things like that. In your world, we talked about this a little bit earlier, artwork, intellectual property, your ideas, if you're an athlete, your trophies, your awards, those things are assets. Just a quick story. So there's an astronaut who couldn't get life insurance because it's a high-risk profession, so they can't get it. But what he did is he signed a bunch of stamps with his name on it, so that if he didn't survive the launch, his family could then sell them. They would be worth a lot of money. So that was his life insurance. And so, everybody's not an artist. Everybody's not an astronaut. So they may need to have a plan in place, some small, with a small contribution that leaves a big pool of assets to your family.
And the other point, I remember my other point was, in kind of, especially with like a will, and when you start to think about, well, who do I count on? You think your spouse, you think your family, you also think your friends. And it's kind of like a neat exercise to go through, actually, that I thought, well, I'd love for my friend to be an executor. She understands me. And all of a sudden you start to realize the value there, of friendships, of connections that we have, and how much we really need them. For that legacy to survive. We need each other. I just found that kind of like an interesting and surprising, fact that, my friend is not just somebody who I can sit down and have a coffee with, but I can entrust really important ththings to. So
you're unique and you're forward thinking about these things, Silvana. Many don't see it that way, and people think, who can be a beneficiary, who can be a benefactor, so to speak.
Yeah.
Anybody who depends upon your income or what you do or your continued work is important. And we often neglect to think of that way, because the family isn't structured the way it used to be, a husband and wife, 2.5 children and a dog, right? There's many cross boundaries with families these days. Children take care of, parents, or uncles take care of nieces and nephews. So all those things are cross-dependent, interdependent. So we need to think about those things when we're planning our legacy.
Yeah. There are lots of kind of really warm feelings that come out when you start to plan, and I don't know, it's just like a little surprise feature. It's not morbid, it's just, again, protecting and promoting and really kind of taking, like, even if it is like something like, well, I own this social media platform that is, somewhat successful. You may not own much, but you can own more these days, I feel like, and it can be a nuisance to kind of keep up with, but it's your image, it's your identity. And you say, well, that's something that I can take pride in, look to see how that will be passed on or managed, when I can't, kind of thing. And I think valuing what we have, rather than, we have such a culture of like, oh, I don't have that, or I wish I had that. We actually have a lot. We look after it.
I love the way you think about this very, very much, especially as a business owner and a lot of your assets are tied into what your knowledge is and what your skills are.
Yeah.
And what the future of that's going to look like.
Yeah.
And many of the creators out there now, that's the same is true of them too. Many likely don't realize it quite yet, Then one day they wake up and they've got 1 million followers. That's an asset, right?
Yeah. And all of the sketches that got you there. Like if you go to the museum in Baltimore, they have the largest collections of drawings from Matisse anywhere. And so you think, well, those are value, like just little sketches you don't know as an artist, keep them if you have the space, store them up somewhere. And, you haven't made it yet or something like that, but, just say like, no, but I've got these. And I just keep on working at them and it's going to get me somewhere someday. And all of this will add up to something. And I just love that, I get excited about your role because you can come in and say like, look at all this stuff. You break it down. And when you have things kind of, your assets all kind of like in front of you, you say, wow, I didn't realize I was so rich really. And then you can start to say, this is what I want to build. And this is how I can go about building it. And there's excitement in that. So.
And the nice thing about your business is you guys are intertwined as a family too, like the pottery work and things like that you have from your family.
Yeah.
That's immense.
It is. It is. It's being able to say like, I've got these connections and my family does this, my family does that, or I have a friend who does this. And all of that doing, it does add up to something too. And people get encouraged by that. The gallery people come in here and they say, oh, this is really neat to see that there's stuff going on that's original and local and you get a flavor for it. And so it makes the community feel richer,
I love that. I love that it's that again, that riches, wealth, assets, legacy, it's not always money.
No. Yeah,
it's so much more. I love that.
Yeah. So it's been a journey over here, but I just think like, when you are building a community and I feel like, I see your posts, I know Annie, I just feel like, your team is growing and we're building, we're always building. So, if we're just following that passion and kind of just continue to do, You're
a very special person. You see things from a unique perspective, more unique than some business owners. Maybe it's the artistic slant to it, this value of, because even your family's business with the tables and with the mosaics and it's all unique. It's stuff that you can do with your hands, but that's very, very valuable,
Yeah, I guess after a while, when you see people come in and how they light up and how they are also interested in having art experiences like art classes where they produce something and they realize it can be difficult, but then they push through it and then you see development and then they feel like, oh, I can do this. I don't know. Enough time has gone by where people are developing in here. They're becoming part of like a group. We be part of the community. And so I'm a believer in the process, I'm a believer in that there is an outcome, eventually. Again, just not to give up. And it does help when there's some financial backing behind it.
Absolutely. And I also feel like since, in a post-COVID environment, there is an increased interest in the arts. And I think it's long overdue. I mean, I have a child who went through high school in Northern Virginia and, she went, culinary, writing and things like that. And so for so long, it wasn't included as much in our curriculum, things like arts and music. It's there, but it's almost like it's an afterthought, right?
Yes.
If you want to go to performing arts school, you got to go far away somewhere. There wasn't much of a place for people, to have those experiences, right? So I'm grateful that it's becoming a thing, not just for the student, but also even a way of therapy and things like that, like to help heal, which I love a lot.
Yeah, it's almost like the more that it kind of gets pulled away, say from the public school system, thankfully people kind of like stand up and they fight, or there's corporations that say, let's pair these things up, or let's bring arts into this. And it almost like I see that it continues rolling. Unfortunately, there are people who kind of miss out in the public school system, or certain age groups might miss out during transition times, but art usually finds its way around, and at least I hope it does. So
I love it. This is exactly the kind of conversation I think that is very much needed in our communities as our young adults particularly start to develop their passions and what they want to do.
Yeah.
It often was a path that went very much like this, and it was driven by someone else, not so much what was in the heart of the individual. So I like to see that.
Yeah, I think it's stopping to take stock of, the benefits that the art does bring. Like, I do like the idea of if there's a return to art for people or a turn to art in general for people, I think from a therapy standpoint, like for me, it's very therapeutic because it just allows me to empty out my mind and focus on something other than, my day kind of thing. And I think a lot of people really like that release. They like that ability to just sit there and concentrate on something. There's something that happens with the brain and chemistry and stuff like that that's good for people. And then we talk about risk taking, that you can feel like, oh gosh, I can't do this, but it's not like you're building a bridge. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be you. And then allowing you to come out and, be your person. So anyway, I could talk all day about the benefits of art, but
I love it. There is actually some other connections, as you said, that I think will be important to make. There's a lady that, started one business, but then she opened a art consignment store, so to speak. A lot of people start out on these hobbies and go, I'm going to be an artist. They buy all this equipment, and then they maybe realize it's not quite their passion. And so they have all this, supplies. And so she takes those supplies. She has a retail store in Old Town Manassas and resells them. So she's a sweet lady.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And gives it an opportunity. I started out with a secondhand darkroom, kind of kit. And I'm totally grateful to that person. And I could buy it for $100 and I spent hours, devoted to that. So it definitely does go to benefit. So
I love that.
Oh, well, it's been really nice chatting with you, Stacy.
Likewise.
Yeah. Was there anything else that you wanted to add or say about, what you're doing? Or I hope you're going to come out and visit some of the studios. I hope that there's something that catches your eye and it'll be nice to see you.
And there's some other connections I want to talk to you about, probably off of the podcast, but some new things that are happening in the Stacy Tucker world that I'm excited about that is closely aligned with what some of the things your family's doing. So,
cool.
My only add is that when you're thinking about your legacy and what those assets look like, consider the part of it that most people won't come and talk to you about, and it's the insurance piece. It's exciting, as you say, Savannah, when you realize what you're protecting. Not just for you and the next generation, but perhaps for generations to come. And so, align yourself with somebody who you feel connected to, and find out what you need.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, thank you very much, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's an honor to co-chair the studio tour this year with Sandy Buffy. And on behalf of the Great Falls Studios artist community, I'm sending out a big thank you to the tour's corporate sponsors: Emily Marentette Real Estate, Brightview Senior Living Great Falls, Moss Building and Design, RJS Construction, Surrounds Landscaping, Stacy Tucker's State Farm Insurance, Dianne Van Volkenburg at Long & Foster Real Estate, The Residences at Colvin Run, Blue Chicken Bakery, Broadway Gallery, and L'Auberge Chez François. Ooh la la. And a big thank you to all those who make it out to visit us.